Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Of course, I'm Philip Lawrence, and I'm joined here with Garnet Genis, the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, our Shadow Minister for International Development. Like many politicians, joined this line of work because I wanted to make a contribution and to make life a little bit better. And I was very pleased in my first PMB to help our farmers by giving them an exemption from the carbon tax. And I'm equally excited today to be discussing my brand newly numbered private members bill C281, which seeks to improve Canada's position in the world as a leader in promoting and advocating for human rights. The bill does four things specifically. It's the Connect to help hopefully make this a little bit better place in the world. And so one of which is to list the prisoners of which the Canadian government is fighting for, prisoners of conscience. Secondly is to put certain reporting obligations on the Minister of Foreign Affairs with respect to requests to impose sanctions, Magnitsky sanctions. Third is certain amendments to the Broadcasting Act, which prohibits the issue, amendment, and renewal of broadcasting licenses to entities that may be at the influence of foreign entities that have either been held to have committed genocide by Parliament or are currently sanctioned underneath the Magnitsky Act. And finally, a prohibition against doing work or business with munitions manufacturers or transporters or sellers. Whether we're advocating for individuals who are fighting for democracy or freedom, or we're fighting against munitions that are every year kill children across this world. It is incredibly important that we advocate and that we take a stand as a country that has a great history of human rights, and I'm very honored and delighted to have hopefully a small part in furthering Canada's reputation as a defender of human rights there. I'll just go through one specific part of the act, and that is the prohibition against munitions. Of course, munitions are extremely deadly and non-discriminate pieces of military weapons that what differentiates them from other pieces is they are completely indiscriminate and they will kill civilians just as soon as they would kill soldiers, children, and innocents. And so it's absolutely incumbent on all of us to advocate and to protect the innocents as we go forward. At this point, I'll pass the floor over to my colleague Garnet Genis.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to have the opportunity to second and otherwise support this great bill, C281, from my colleague Philip Lawrence, who's such a great champion for his constituents and for justice and human rights here in Canada and around the world. He spoke about the cluster munitions provisions within this bill, and there are a number of different provisions in this bill, which the short title of which is the International Human Rights Act. But more broadly, this piece of legislation really is a game changer in terms of the engagement and powers of Parliament to hold the government accountable when it comes to the advancement of international human rights. The Minister of Foreign Affairs under this legislation will be required to table an annual report in Parliament on the work that she or he is doing to advance international human rights. The Minister of Foreign Affairs would be required to respond within 40 days or a different timeline set by the committee when a parliamentary committee asks that someone be subject to Magnitsky sanctions. This is important because the Magnitsky Act was a sanctions instrument that was proposed by Conservatives. It was passed through Parliament, but the Liberals have been very reluctant to use it. So this creates a mechanism by which a parliamentary committee could effectively nominate someone for Magnitsky sanctions, and then the minister would have to respond. The minister of the government preserves discretion around that, but it creates important accountability mechanisms for Parliament to be able to push the government forward on these issues. And it means that if Parliament recognizes something taking place as a genocide, that has teeth in that the entity that's involved in that genocide can no longer take advantage of Canadian airwaves to broadcast hateful, violent messages through state-controlled media into Canada. We've seen the problems with RT in the context of the invasion in Ukraine, but there are other actors as well that require comparable treatment, which the government hasn't moved on. So this creates meaningful mechanisms by which Parliament can push the government, and the government will be accountable to Parliament for the advancement of international human rights. So this is the International Human Rights Act. It puts together a number of different kinds of measures, but all around that central goal of strengthening Canada's role in the world, standing up for justice and human rights, and strengthening the role of Parliament in being able to push the government further in the advancement of human rights. This is a strong bill with measures that I hope will gain support from all sides of the House. We're putting it forward. I'm hoping to see it pass into law this Parliament. So thank you so much, and we would welcome any questions.
Okay, so if you have a question and you're online, please use the raise hand function to ask your question. Si vous avez une question, vous êtes en ligne, utilisez la fonction lever la main pour poser une question. There are no questions online, so this concludes the press conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.